All right, Nate. Hey, thanks for joining me on the podcast. Kind of surprised it took us so long to get you on here. Maybe I didn't want to talk to you. I'm not too sure.
Probably just because I'm a southpaw, right?
You're a southpaw. Yeah, I mean, you were a disappointment to your coaches.
Oh, come on now.
Where should I go? I mean, for those listening, I was Nate's goalie coach in high school, and um, he wasn't that bad. Not as bad as I say he was, but he had some memorable games, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Bantering back and forth, and made some memories.
When I had Dustin Carlson on, we were talking about the different goalie personalities we had kind of during that time. And, that was kind of when he started coaching too. Now he's the Ohio State goalie coach. And I told him, you were that goalie where I could just pick on you.
Yeah.
And you got it. Like, you weren't offended, and you understood where it was coming from. I mean, I remember one game, I forget what happened, but I just looked at you from the bench, like, really? And you just did one of these, and it was like, we didn't even have to say anything. We just looked at each other like,
Just
yeah, I
knew.
know. It just knew. Yeah. So before we get into that stuff, I ask everybody, what got you into hockey? Yeah, you grew up in Minnesota. Yeah, your dad played, but, what kind of got you into the game?
Um, I don't remember too much. I know I started skating in downtown Minneapolis area. And I only remember this because my grandma made a memories video type thing, and that was part of it. Was my first time on skates. Um, I would say my first real memories of hockey was probably Mites and Anoka. And at that time, it was kind of a rotational thing of positions. And if you wanted to play center, which I always wanted to do when I was little, you had to play goalie first. So I'd always go into the goalie crease to play goalie for one shift so that I could go out and play center the next shift. And my dad thought it was because I wanted to be goalie. So he ended up buying me all the equipment and asking if I wanted to try it. And it just kind of took off from there. My dad was my coach all the way through probably my second year of Bantam, and did camps and just kind of grew with my love with that. And uh, we every Christmas, Dad would buy about 3 boxes of hockey cards, and we'd sit in the living room opening up hockey cards, and we'd watch games just about every night. And uh, just couldn't keep me off the ice. So,
Does your dad ever look back at it and go, I should have let you be a center?
I don't think so.
Because
With him being a goalie, I
yeah,
think
he
it was
nurtured it.
everything he could have asked for.
Yeah,
First picture of me and him when I was born, I think it was like 6 days after I was born. It was him holding me, and I had a hockey stick in my hands.
yeah. That was the nice thing. And your dad, being a goalie, he understood he played goalie in a different era for one, and that's saying something for us because we came up learning pad stacks and skate staves still.
Yep, and that's exactly what he taught me. And I've skated a couple of these open hockey things, some 3-on-3s, and every now and then I find myself throwing out a skate save.
Yeah,
Just muscle memory.
I use the pad stack all the time, and I made a save 2-3 weeks ago. And even the opposing team and the guy that shot it, they loved it. He's like, I'm not even mad I didn't score.
Yeah.
It's always fun to pull out. And I don't know why, but lately I haven't been doing the skate save, but still kind of like the Grant Fuhrer kicking the stick out
Yep.
as the puck goes off of it. I've noticed past couple games I've just instinctively doing it, and I'm like, that makes no sense, but it looks pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I always I've always gone. I still go to the old windmill glove save every now and then. And
You have to. In fact, I got that great picture of you in Grand Rapids, just
yep,
full extension catching
yep,
that puck.
yeah,
I
I've
think
got that on my screensaver at work, so I see it just about every day.
yeah, I think I still. Are you still wearing those old cohos, or have you upgraded since then?
Yep, I've still got the maroon and gold cohos, the same gloves. I did have to change out my helmet finally a few years ago. I still have the old Olaf Kolzing helmet,
Yep.
but it finally failed on me, so I had to get a new one.
I had Olaf on my 100th episode, and I was talking to him about his helmet, and I had mentioned that I coached you, and you
Yeah,
had that helmet, and he liked that. Uh, that helmet is kind of in one of those iconic phases. It's not like Potvins where everybody seems to want it, but people do, replicate it, and
yeah,
they want that helmet. And he likes that. He had mentioned how the first Godzilla one came about, and how the first one looked like Barney the dinosaur. He's like, that lasted maybe 2 games. It's like they needed to fix that right away. But so you're playing hockey, in Forest Lake, and then like every hockey player in Minnesota, you want to play high school hockey. Did you think you had a shot to make the team, first of all?
the Force Lake team.
Yeah.
Um, I had a pretty good feeling that I'd get on the team. At that time, I don't think Forest Lake was as big as most of these other schools. I think there's my first year of Bantams, there was only 3 goalies that even
Mm-hmm.
tried out,
Yeah.
and just based off of that, that kind of gave me the feeling that there's probably not going to be many goalies trying out in a couple of years for high school either. So just kind of went out there and did my thing, and just waited for my turn.
As coaches, we talked about it because Forest Lake School District is one of the largest in the state.
Okay.
Geographically, it's larger than the city of Chicago. It's got a ton of kids, but the wrestling program was so strong at that point that we lost a lot of good athletes to the wrestling program early on too, because
Sure.
Coach Detmer did a great job of recruiting young wrestlers to that program. And we said it's not a bad thing because it's great for the community to have a dominant program like that. But we're like, how many good hockey players did we lose to the wrestling program over the years?
Yeah.
And then, even though it was a different season, baseball,
Yep.
they had especially while you were there. I mean, they were going to the state tournament and everything. They had the player of the year the one year. It's just, you've got those 2 programs, and some of our hockey players, like Crit, the Fogarty brothers, they were on the baseball team, and Gump was on he was the catcher, which,
Yep.
how are you a catcher and not a goalie? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It just, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it, especially with a nickname like Gump.
Yeah.
But the baseball program was just so good that they attracted some of the athletes away from us.
Yeah, and even the less dominant football team. I know there were a ton of the
less
guys on
dominant
the team
football team. They won
yeah,
one game in the 3 years I covered them.
yeah, but a bunch of the hockey guys were still on the football team.
Mm-hmm. Football, we had a few soccer players.
Yep.
But the time you were there, and we think of the goalies: Carlson, you, Moberg, Fritzinger, Neujahr, Frost. We had some goaltending depth for sure during that time. Even though we didn't have a lot of goalies, we had strong goalies. I mean, you look at Carlson, he went to Ohio State. We look at Moberg, he went to Air Force Academy, if I'm not mistaken. He played juniors too, I think. Neujahr, I forget if he played after high school or not. He could have if he wanted to.
I don't remember.
Fritzinger, Could have if he wanted to, but him and his brother were just goofballs. I don't know if he wanted to.
Sure. Did
um,
you ever
yeah.
coach? I had a cousin, I think a second cousin, Gaffey, Christian Gaffrey.
I coached him in STT stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
He went to Duluth.
yeah, I remember that, and he was a hard working kid in practice. He was fun to coach. So when my daughter was born, that was the year Carl stepped down, and then after that season, and then uh,
Forsyth, wasn't it?
Forsyth took over, and because of my daughter, I reached out to Aaron. I was like, "Hey, like, I would love to stick around, but I got a newborn at home, and I can't justify 6 nights a week
Yeah.
coming out to the rink." He's like, "I totally understand." But it's funny. I mean, he's now the AD in Matamidi, and they just won the state championship. And it was funny because I was at the game with my son, and I'm watching him as everybody's celebrating. He goes and picks up the game puck. I was like,
Yeah.
that's how you know your AD is a hockey guy when he thinks of those things.
Yeah.
In fact, last year at the homecoming football game, I took my kids and I saw my daughter. I was like, "Hey, I know your athletic director." And she's like, "No, you don't." And he's walking by and he just stops. And I'm like, "Aaron." And he's, and she's like, "Oh my God, you do know everybody, don't you?" I was like, "Yep, you're not even safe in your own school, kid." But, then you get to high school and I'm your goalie coach. What were you, and you were going to Staubers camps at that point in time too. So what were you thinking when I get out on the ice with you? And I'm a little unconventional, shall we say?
Sure. It was just different. It was a new experience. My only goalie coach my whole career was my dad.
Yeah.
So it was a little different, but it was also nice being able to, hear a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things that, if dad might be a little light on just because he's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, we had no relationship and you're not afraid to tell me the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, there were times, how many times did I tell you, get your head out of your ass?
Right.
And sometimes you did.
Sometimes.
But in Dustin and I were talking about it too, because that's when you're coaching, kind of the fine line is good coaches want their goalies to work with different coaches, get those different points of view. But knowing you were going to Staubers camps and knowing what they were teaching, I didn't want to tell you the complete opposite.
Right.
Because there were some things they were teaching at the time that I understood it made sense, but it felt a little goalie factory like, and not coaching to the goalie.
Sure.
And so that was a fine line I had to walk, because I also knew mom and dad were paying a little bit of money for you to go to see, to Stauber, even if it was just gas to get out there, because that's on the other side of town. It's not next door. Time, money, and everything. So I didn't want to be like, what he's teaching you is ridiculous. It was like, okay, how do we make this work for you?
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to overload you and get you stuck in your own head either.
Yeah, which back then I know that was very easy for me. I'd get into my head, and I think one of my biggest weak points is I'd internalize it.
Mm-hmm. You'd overthink it.
Yep. So and Stauber wasn't even the only camp I was going to, so it was a lot of different things that was getting thrown at me at the time. And yeah, like you said, some of the things contradicted one another. I went to Carroll's goalie camp. I did goalie camp up in Deerwood, Heartland hockey camps. Steve Jensen owns that one. That was a lot of fun every year. But no camp taught the exact same thing.
No. And I can't fault those coaches, because when you go to them, they're trying to but in my case, I was with you all season for, it was what, 3 seasons. I was with you for 2 or
Yep.
3. And I had to work within that.
Yeah.
I think we did a decent job to, I think we maximized your abilities. And when I think of you, of all the goalies I coach in Forest Lake, we were probably most alike in our abilities. Like you and I, we weren't the most gifted athletes, but we
Right.
wanted it more than the other goalies. So we
Yeah.
worked harder.
Yep.
And I think that's what I saw in you. It was that passion, that drive. But I also, like you said, you internalized it and you overthought it. And I also saw that. So I was like, all right, how do we minimize that? And that's why I tried to make it light and pick on you.
Sure. Yep. And I appreciated that more than I think I ever told you. It made practices fun. It made games fun. And it was tough once I started in Forest Lake because I joined there so late.
Mm-hmm.
Bantams was my first year. My first year Bantams was when we moved into that district. And I had been in the Anoka district for as long as I could remember.
Mm-hmm.
Left all my friends, teammates, everything, and just kind of jumped in and was kind of expected to just go with it.
Yeah. I could tell you never felt like you truly belonged.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I know that feeling. And it's interesting, as goalies, that's kind of our normal. We're either kind of like the life of the team, or we're just kind of that wallflower. Like,
Yeah. On the
we're part of the
outskirts.
team, but like, yeah, we don't necessarily have to hang out with everybody after the games.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, I think the different goalies, and that was kind of the case. They were either like Dustin, he was in that group, but he also came up with a really strong, solid group of friends through the system.
Right.
But Moberg, Frost, Newyear, Newyear hung out with some of the guys, but he was still kind of a Fritzinger. It depended on the day for him.
Sure.
He was another one of those. I learned pretty quickly with him that the sooner I could upset him, the harder he would work.
Okay.
He liked that competition side, and tell him he can't do it and he's going to do it.
Yeah.
God,
That's a good drive to have, though, sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he was one of those kids, like, trying to figure out how to motivate him was interesting. And he had that exterior. It wasn't that he was motivated. He just had that exterior of calmness to him, that he didn't look like he was motivated, which you want that in a goalie. That was
Yep.
Corey Crawford, for all those years in Chicago, never looked like he was phased, but he
Yeah.
was always dialed in. And kind of the same personality in Fritzinger. I have to ask, what did your dad think of me as a coach? He was a great hockey parent in that he never to us questioned what we were doing.
Yep.
And was always friendly and like, what you got to do, you got to do. You're making the decisions. I get it. But what was he thinking behind the scenes on the car ride home?
He never really talked about it much, at least during the season. I've brought your name up a couple of times, and I think he said he had a couple of disagreements with the way you were doing things, but never really, he, like you said, he never came to you about it.
Yeah.
You're the coach.
Yep.
Coaches coach, players play, spectators spectate.
Yep.
So, and I think it was more of he didn't believe that you understood my personality. But who knows?
I as a parent, though, I can understand that. But from the outside, I might argue maybe I understood it too well.
Sure.
That may have been part of it too. Because I look at my son playing baseball right now, and I think of what he needs from a coaching standpoint, and maybe what I see is different than what the coaches see.
Right.
It may have been one of those, but to your dad's point of questioning things, there were a few times where we talked technique, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't disagreement, so it's just good conversation, like trying to understand each other's sides. And I love those conversations because
Yeah.
and many times in those conversations, it's not that either side is wrong. It's just, we hear it all the time in goaltending is it's your toolbox. What
Yeah.
tool are you using at what time? Perfect example of that is how many times at the JV level would we end a practice with a shootout? And then we had that Christmas tournament in Chicago where we go to the championship game and it's a shootout. And I forget who the defenseman was. We threw in there in like the 8th round, and all the parents are going, what the heck is going on? But me and Chad, who I actually saw at the state championship game, he was right behind me as we were going down to our seats. We're like,
Oh, cool.
hey, how are you? But we knew from those shootouts at the end of practice, like, didn't have great hands passing and everything else, but in the shootout, he was dialed in every time. We put him in and he scored the winner. And I believe you were on varsity at that time because Moberg was the goalie in that game. And after the game, the parents are going, what were you guys, like, it worked out, but what were you guys thinking putting him out there? And we just laughed and like, we knew he could do it. He was that tool in the toolbox.
Yep.
And use it at the right time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after high school, I remember you wound up going on to college. Did you play intramurals or anything at that point?
No, I didn't. I went to River Falls for a couple of years, and just it was more of a hangout. Didn't finish or anything like that. Came back to Anoka Ramsey, but I had always skated on a men's league team over at the Super Rink, and I did that for years. I'd probably still be doing it had I not moved way up north. Because I'm in Buffalo now.
Yeah, but you're still skating in Eden Prairie, which is the complete opposite side of town. And you asked me to do that during the work week in the middle of the day. I'm like,
it works out because my office is in Richfield and it's a lunch skate. So I just run over there for my lunch hour and go skate.
Well, it helps when Dad's the boss too, and you tell him you gotta go play hockey.
Well, yeah, and I'm almost the boess.
Yeah,
Grandpa's getting ready to retire, and I'm going to end up taking his place. So
that does help.
It helps.
Fortunately, I don't have that ability. Although one of my contacts reached out to me over the summer asking if I could fill in for the Dubuque League morning skate.
Oh yeah.
And I had a meeting. I had some meetings the next day, but they were with my boss. And I sent him a text. I was like, "Hey, could we maybe move back our meetings? I got a chance." And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." But then I just had too much work. I was like, I can't in good conscience.
Yeah.
Because it was down in Edina, and that's an hour each way. Yep. And then I still get there an hour before, I take the ice. So there's 3 hours and I haven't even touched the ice. I'm like,
yeah,
I had too much work. I was like, but
makes it tough.
Yeah. And this fella, he's Connor Beaupre's backup for the emergency backup. So I'm like, I want to go out there. I want to get that skate in, but I just couldn't in good conscience do it. And he understood. It was just kind of like, it is what it is. But yeah, those lunchtime skates, they can be fun. I mean, when I was in college, I go home on break. I would do the lunchtime skate at Johnny's Ice House right outside the United Center because it had the best skate in the city. It was so close to downtown. These guys could pop over on their lunch break. We had lawyers, we had dentists, we had doctors and priests and business owners. In fact, one of the guys, he told his wife he didn't play hockey anymore. And then a dentist of all people, got him with a high stick and knocked 3 teeth out. And he comes home missing 3 teeth, all bloody. And he told his wife, and he was back the next day. And they're like, "How did it go over?" He goes, Cost me a lot of money. We got to go on a vacation now. But the dentist who knocked his teeth out felt so bad about it. He offered to take care of him pro bono to fix the teeth and do the implants and everything. So that it worked out for him in the long run.
Yeah. That's why hockey players are the best. So.
Yeah. Well, it was such a fun skate because Billy Zito, he was still a player rep at that point. He was out there with us.
Fun.
And he's the Florida GM now. And I was upset when I was listening to the Spit and Chicklets with Timmy Stapleton because I played against him in high school. He played for Fenwick. And apparently he was at some of those skates. I don't remember him at them, but Zito saw him in those skates and saw something in him and got him to Winnipeg. And I'm sitting here going, I was in those same skates and he never talked to me other than to see if I could make them. I was like, I feel a little offended here, you know. But hey, it is what it is. I still got to have fun.
Yeah. But that's what it's all about, you know, just finding a good group of guys and being able to have fun for an hour. And
yeah, and that's what it is with the team I'm on now. It's mostly Hugo, White Bear, and Stillwater firefighters. We do have one cop on the team, so he gets picked on. And we got a guy from Forest Lake on the team now too. But it's just a good group of guys. And as I look at us getting ready to move out of state, I'm like, that's what I'm going to miss is that group. But I'll find another one down there. And that's how I'll introduce myself to the community, is just getting into a few skates and make a new group of friends. So, you know, you played at the Super Rink League is awesome. And again, because I found a good group of friends, I'm playing in the D League because I like these guys.
Yep.
They're not very good, but it doesn't matter. You know, our saying is if nobody gets hurt and we have beer, it's a victory. Doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. But I have and could play up higher, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Are you on a regular skate these days? Because there are some leagues up in the North Metro that you could get into.
Not yet. My focus right now is I've got my wedding coming up in June. So I've been really focused on that. But
I'm sure you're the one doing all the planning.
No. But I fell into this this skate over in Eden Prairie here, this 3-on-3 at the Velocity Ice Center. One of the guys that skates it is our company's insurance agent. And I had always told him, hey, if you need a goalie, let me know. I'd be happy to come skate.
Yep.
And it just so happened that they needed a goalie one day and went and skated, and they added me to the group, and I've been going every week since, probably a month and a half now.
And it's fun in those skates because even those high level ones, even if you do suck, they're like, we just want a light body to shoot on. We don't care. You know,
Exactly.
It's ice time. Because in the summertime, the guy that runs the Minnesotan, he has a skate here in White Bear. It's perfect time. It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on like Wednesdays. And, you know, it's a mixed bag of talent, but it's pretty good. But there's a few guys that are home, you know, in the summertime from the minor leagues, still trying to crack an NHL lineup. And it's like, yep, they're easy to spot. And it's not just because of, you know, their helmets and the stickers and everything on them, but once they go skating around and they can catch every pass, even if it's a bad one, and then all of a sudden their shots they're behind you before you even see it. It's like, okay, I got to up my game a little bit.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah, that's exactly what this skate is. There's some good guys out here. There's a couple of ex-NHL guys, couple of ex-D1 guys, D3 superstars, and it's fast, but it is so much fun.
I've had this conversation with other goalies. It's always easier to play up because in certain plays, like a 2-on-1, if they're passing over, you expect them to shoot on pass.
Yep.
When you skate down, you play as if that's going to happen, but it doesn't happen because they fumble the puck and then they pass it over. Now you're way out of position and it makes you look bad. It's always easier to skate up. Even if they're sniping you, you're still playing better. You're in better position than if you're playing down. That's just been my opinion.
And your reactions match the speed of their shots a lot better.
Yep.
That was one of the things I noticed because I skated D-League a couple of times in Blaine. And that was one of the things I always noticed is I was expecting this super hard, super quick shot, and I'd be in my spot and go to make the save, and the puck hadn't even left his stick yet.
Right. I've had a few of those where I move the glove and I'm moving it too fast because I'm expecting it to be what I've seen in the past. And it's like, no, it's just a little flutter shot. It's like, son of a gun. But it is what it is. So you've got a few kids running around the house. Are any of them skating?
Not yet, although my son, who is 6, right at the end of winter here now, has expressed interest in wanting to learn how to skate and play hockey and play on the same team as me, he says. But so I'm probably going to take him over and get a pair of skates and see if I can find a spot yet this winter for him to get out there and start trying it.
Well, 6 is like that perfect age. It's still mites, if I'm not mistaken. So, just tell Grandpa, and he'll make sure he's fully equipped, and he'll have a goalie stick and skates in no time.
Exactly.
If grandparents are good for one thing, it's that. I learned that over the years. And I mean, for your dad, he'd be like, "Yeah, let's have a 3rd generation goalie. This would be great."
Right. Yep. That'd be fun.
Yeah. The stories he'd probably be able to tell them, back in my day when we didn't wear masks.
Yep.
I say that knowing that he did wear a mask.
He did.
Even though it was probably a combo, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen any of his original equipment. Although I am still wearing his chest protector that he gave to me in high school.
You know what, though? I'm still wearing my Brian's Elite I got in college. The thing's probably 22, 23 years old. Yep. And I like those older chest protectors better. They had more mobility. And there was a comment on GGSU yesterday where a guy's looking for a new chest protector. He's got the same one as me. And it's not that he's getting the stingers in the arms. It feels like even though the arm protection was smaller back then, it was not more intelligent, but it was just done better to where everything that needed to be covered was covered. It's just as I get older, I feel the bruise here. I got one on my belly button from 3 weeks ago. You felt the puck, but everything that needed to be covered was covered. Whereas I'm reading the stuff of guys with, the new stuff, and they're like, oh, there's a spot every time it hits me here. It's just, I don't know. I kind of like some of that older 90s era stuff, early 2000s seemed to be really good.
Yeah. And I think that stuff benefits me the most. Just, I'm a short goalie, so I need to have all that mobility to really stand a chance. And that older equipment gives me that.
You could use some Garth Snow cheaters, coming up to here.
Get a little taller skate blade.
Yeah. Yeah.
But taller skate blade does nothing when you go down into a butterfly.
I got my new pads like that. No, but now that I have my new stuff, I'm thinking I might need to upgrade because I'm still wearing my old Reactor 5s. But the newer goalie skates with the thicker, taller seal is probably the best way to say it, and a taller chassis. Instead of this far, you have that much. So for doing the butterfly slides, you have a little more to catch the ice with. I'm kind of realizing that would benefit my game. Well, okay. I say it will. I don't know if it would actually help me or not. Because you saw me with the pads on a few times in practice. I still scramble. I'm still
Oh,
all over the place.
yeah, you had a bit of the Dominic Hasek style.
Yeah, I say it was kind of like Cujo mixed with Hasek, you know, very reflexive
Mm-hmm.
style, and just throw the arms, the legs, whatever I can to stop the puck.
Yep.
You know that, but you weren't much different. You were a little more blocking, kind of that Quebec style, mixed with that '90s reflexive.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite a Patrick Waugh, but maybe a little more Jaguar style.
Okay.
Is probably what I
Sure.
would see yours, because Jaguar was, you know, he also had that giant chest protector. He was one of the reasons we have regulations now. But he was still kind of that flexible all over the place like you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so the little guy, he's probably going to start skating. Are you going to start coaching that?
Um, I don't know. Haven't really thought of it. Uh, I'll probably give it a shot to start out, and we'll see how it goes, and uh, probably just kind of wing it from there. Um,
It's easier to yell at the refs from ice level than it is the stands. I'll say that.
that would make sense. Although you coached me for 3 years, I don't upset easily. That
No.
was coach's biggest complaint about me is I
Yeah.
didn't show my emotions like
Yeah.
that.
Carl would come and get pissed off. Get
Yeah.
pissed off, Nate. And
Yep.
you're like,
I'll never forget the Roseville game when God, something happened in my crease and I took a swing at a guy, and one of the defensemen came in for backup and got a penalty for me. And at intermission, Carl came in and he started yelling at the team because they weren't playing with any tenacity or fire. And he comes
yeah,
over to me and kicks me in the leg and says, Nate's finally got it. It took him 26 games, but he finally found it.
I remember that. He was smiling so big. He loved it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that I remember that game now.
and and that was part of my dad.
Mhm.
He coached me and always told me, don't get upset because it'll make you play worse.
Yep.
So I did everything I could to keep everything inside so that I could stay calm and collected, and not let anything shake me.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, one, a ref isn't going to change their call.
Right.
And one of the things I was taught in goalie schools was be nice to the refs, be their friend. You're more likely to get calls in your favor doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I still do it in the beer leagues. I joke with the refs, and there's been a few questionable calls, and I try and be respectful as possible. In fact, there was one, the absolute worst call I've ever seen. The puck is outside the zone. There's one ref working, so I sympathize with that. She's behind the play. They dump it in. It goes off on the side of the net enough to where it hits the outside of the net. So you could see a little bit of movement, but you hear it bounce off the boards and ricochet out the other way. She calls it a goal.
Oh, jeez.
I argue it. The other team's even going, it didn't go in the net. When the other team's saying that, like,
Yeah.
take that into account. And she's like, that's the call I made on the ice. What do you want me to do? And I looked at her, I said, I want you to say it was no goal, just like everybody else on the ice. And I looked at her, I said, find me the hole in the net. Where's the hole in the net? Because if there's a hole in the net, that explains why you heard the bounce off the boards. Otherwise, explain to me how it went in the net and bounced off the boards. She goes, I can't. And it was like, and the best part was I put my GoPro behind the net, so I actually have it on video. And like it was like this wide of the net. I was calm to her. I said, I get it. You're working alone. You were screened. You were behind the play. I said, there's no shame in saying, yeah, I called it a goal, but it wasn't. Everybody agrees.
Yeah.
thank God it wasn't a 1-goal game. We actually still won that game, but it was like, oh my God, but
Yep.
the whole time I'm going, what good does it do me to, and I seen a little bit of the game before, and there were two. It was her and another ref at that game, and these players were just giving it to her because she was terrible in that game too.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because some people just shouldn't be refs, and it felt like this person just shouldn't have been a ref. She just had an attitude where she didn't want to be out there, and it was probably because she had a rough game before. So it was like I got that, and I was trying to be. It was like, oh my God, come on. But I mean, I've had refs where they call it a goal, and I'm like, no, come look. It never. And they're like, okay, sorry, no goal. Face up, fine. I've also had the refs where they take the counsel of others and they're like, actually, it was a goal. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, but I wasn't going to tell you that.
And I'm sure you get the refs that, they'll hold grudges against certain teams in the beer leagues, and it doesn't matter how the current game goes. They go back to the previous one, and they'll make
oh my God, we
life
had one
as hard as possible.
Our cop on our team, we say he's the muscle because he doesn't have a temper, but he doesn't take shit either. Yeah. And there's a game in the fall session. This guy's just game, and you can tell Nate just wants to clock him. But he knows if he does, he's suspended and this and that. And so he doesn't. And the ref comes by after this other guy leaves the ice. He goes, I deal with him every week. He's like, you could have hit him once and I would have let it go. And Nate turns around and goes, you could have told me that sooner.
Yeah.
And the ref started laughing. He goes, just know next time you get one shot and one shot only. But it was, there's those ones. But I mean, at the same time, there's those refs that we get out. Like I show up, the refs come out on the ice and it's like, okay, we got these guys. Even if it's not a great game, it's going to be called fairly. They're going to be. We had that group last night. There's the one guy, you've probably had him in some of your games, Bush. He does a lot of Hockey Finder games. From what I hear, all he does is ref. He'll do like 6-7 games a day if he can, and he makes his living doing that, making a good living nonetheless. But it's like when he's out there, like I can pick on him all I want, and he's going to give it right back to me. But I'm going to get timely whistles. He's going to protect the net too. He watches the crease. If the guy's kind of poking at me, I'm allowed to poke back. But then there's the refs where I wish they understood the rules. A couple weeks ago, I had a guy coming down. He's coming down from my glove side, so it would have been your blocker because you're weird. And he cuts across, so I come out and I poke check. I stack the pads this way and poke check that way. Done it hundreds of times. I get the puck and the guy jumps over me. I don't even make contact with him. Jumps over me, but doesn't stick the landing. He calls me for a penalty. And I looked at him. I said, the rules say if I touch the puck first on a poke check, it's not a penalty. He goes, but he went hard into the boards. I said, I never touched him, though. He jumped over me. I never touched him. I said, it's not tripping if he jumps over. And he's like, and I was calm. I said, I'm just trying to understand where the penalty came in so I don't do it again. And that's how I phrased it to him. I said, so I don't do it again. And he's like, well, you can't trip him. And I said, but I didn't. I didn't trip him. And then there was another one where it's same exact situation. I was playing in the 3M league over at TCO. And the ref comes up. And in that league, they didn't do 2 minutes. It was just a penalty shot. And in that league, so the ref comes up to me and he kind of does one of these. He goes, it really wasn't a penalty. It just looked really bad. So I felt like I should make a call to appease them because they were getting upset about the play. He goes, it wasn't a penalty. I need to keep things under control. I go, that's fair. Yeah. It's a fair. And when I was coaching, it was the same thing. The refs would come up and I would look at all. I go, just so you know, I'm going to yell at you all throughout the game, call you names, but it's not personal. It's in the job description. I'm supposed to do it. So that broke the ice with them right there.
Yeah.
But Carl would always tell them, just come over to me and explain the calls. That's what I ask for. I won't have to agree with it, but at least if you give me an explanation, then I can at least understand it.
Yeah.
So we've been talking for 45 minutes. We could probably talk for a really long time, but I know in a little bit I'm going to get a text from my son saying he needs to be picked up from baseball practice, which he'll appreciate this. I think he should have been a goalie because they have baseball tryouts last week. He's a freshman, so he's trying to figure out freshman baseball, and because it's high school, the coaches aren't talking to the parents anymore. It's just all information funnels through the kids. And they're using an app where they can send information to the kids over here, but then they send information to the parents. And on Thursday, we get the message that for 9th grade ball players, final cuts will be made tonight. No practice Friday, weekend off, and then come back Monday. And I was like, okay, that works. So I pick him up after practice. I was like, how you doing? He's like, good. He's like, how's practice? Good. Anybody talk to you? No. I was like, so do you practice Monday? Yeah, why wouldn't I? Because tonight was final cuts. He goes, I didn't even know tryouts started. I thought this was just practice this week. I was like, look at what the coaches sent us. Huh. I said, did they talk to anybody after practice? I don't know. Me and Brendan just, when they said it was over, we just grabbed our bags and left. So like he goes to school today. I was like, don't forget your baseball bag. You got baseball right after school, and they're handing out lockers and stuff today. So I was like, didn't know if I should expect a text at 2:45, like, Dad, come pick me up, or do I pick him up at 6? I wasn't really sure. And since I haven't gotten the text, I'm pretty confident he's on the team now.
All right.
I was like, Jesus, kid, you should have been a goalie. But he's an outfielder, and that played into his favor. Only 7 kids said they wanted to be outfield, and like 20 kids said they wanted to be infield. I was like, well, that was a good choice for you then.
Yeah. I probably should have chose a different position to try for baseball when I learned Gump was
Catcher.
catch.
Yeah.
I probably should have tried first base, or I played a lot of outfield in little leagues. But I figured catcher would be a good spot for me as a goalie, but everybody hated me because I was a southpaw, and there's no such thing as a southpaw catcher. And
yeah, there aren't, even in the big leagues, there haven't been too many of them. And, it is what it is.
I guess, I suppose that would throw off pitchers more than we would think.
Yeah. I was having the conversation with, I think it was last week's guest, Preston. You'd think more catchers would be better hitters. All they do is see the ball coming in. And I've had a couple of people explain to me, well, you're seeing it at a different angle, but you're still focusing on the release from the hand. You would think you'd see more catchers be, dominant hitters. But it doesn't happen. I don't understand it. It might be because they focus so much on the defensive side of the game that they're not in the cages as much as, say, the first basemen are. I don't know. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Right.
But like I said, we've been talking a while, and I end every episode with 10 questions. They're the same 10 questions I've asked every single guest. So you, Kolzig, Eddie Balfour, Kelly, all the same questions. And the first question is, what's the craziest coaching moment from your playing days where a coach just lost it, went nuts, kind of Carl coming in and kicking you in the pads?
That's probably the one that I would go with. That's got to be the one that I remember. And don't remember much from Bantam coaches or Pee-wees or anything like that. Parzino never got mad.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true, because there were 2 different ones. There was one time he looks at me and Chad and he goes, "You guys stay out here." Okay. And he walks in there and we just heard curse after curse coming out of there. And he opens the door and he's smiling at us and he goes, "You think that'll work?"
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Probably because it wasn't directed at me.
Probably. And then there was another one where you know, it was one of those games where guys just, they weren't into it. They weren't focused. They weren't listening. And, you know, we walked into the locker room and, you know, half the guys have their flip phones out texting. And we're like, put your phones away. Get focused on the game. Get your heads out of your asses. And a phone starts ringing. And we're like, turn your ringers off. Enough of this stuff. And it, like, nobody's going for their pocket to turn it off. And like, and I pick up on, and I just like laying into you guys, like, turn the goddamn phones off. I don't know what's wrong. Blah, blah. We walk out of the locker room. I pull my phone out of my pocket. It was my phone that was ringing the whole time. Yeah, we got a good laugh. We didn't tell you guys that one, but we got a good laugh out of that.
Oh, jeez. I don't remember that. Carl, that Roseville game with Carl coming in and kicking my leg and telling me it took 26 games to find my tenacity. That's probably it.
Well, and the best part is at Roseville, there's kind of like that seating area for open skate. And we went, because we still had time, because the Zamboni was still on the ice. And so we're sitting out in that area, and Carl's just laughing. He goes, you think that got to those guys? He looks at me, he goes, what do you think about Nate? He finally got mad. Don't you like it? And inside I'm going, no, I don't like when Nate's mad, because that's not his normal way of doing things. So I'm like, yeah, Carl, that's good to see. That, you know, well, and it was like Parzino. He was an old school goalie, you know, taught in the time where goalies don't go down, and he just hated when any goalie played the butterfly. And there was one game where you were playing good, but you went down to the butterfly and maybe mishandled a rebound or something. He goes, why has he got to do that? Why has he got to go down all the time? I looked at him and said, Jerry, the game has evolved. It's how we do it now. And he goes, fine, but I don't like it. Yeah. God, he was a treat to be around.
He was definitely a fun coach. I did enjoy playing for him.
Yeah, he was something else. He brought a lot of energy and fire. You know, with the name like Parzino, he brought that Italian vigor for life in the game to the rink.
Yep.
And I mean, and we had that maroon and gold. Like, the new rink's nice, but it doesn't have that character of that tin building.
Yep.
You know, give us the maroon and gold with the new rink's locker rooms and amenities, and that would be ideal.
Okay, I haven't seen the new rink, so I think I've been to Forest Lake maybe 4 times since I graduated.
Really? Well, my nephews played there, so I went to a couple games, and I've skated there once or twice too for pickup skates.
Okay.
Luckily, I have not skated in the bubble. I don't know why they haven't just made that a permanent structure yet, because they've never taken it down. It's like, made sense. The idea was, you know, take that bubble down in the summertime and turn it into a soccer field with turf, but they got all those other fields right there, so they never did.
Yeah.
They'll take the ice out in the summertime and do stuff, but it's like, make it a permanent structure. But it's not bad. It's nice. They last time I went in there, it's been a couple of years now, but they still had all the team photos from over the years. So we're in there still. Last I checked. I don't know how long that'll last, but we're there.
Okay. Because they turned the old barn into like a storage place, right?
Yeah, it's the Public Works building.
Okay.
Yeah, because Public Works used to share the building with the fire department, and they both outgrew that. In fact, the new ladder truck doesn't even fit in that old building, so they built the new city hall and fire station over by the movie theater.
Okay.
Off 61 there, and Public Works moved across the street. So the next question, I think I know the answer, but what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
That'd be the Colzing mask.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I grew up loving Colzing. Van Beesbrook was my other favorite goalie growing up. But just something about that mask just always drew me in, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And my dad surprised me with a new goalie helmet, and that was the paint job that was on it.
Yeah, and it It was a cool looking mask. I'll say that. Shame a left-handed goalie had to wear it though.
Oh,
Did you see Darcy Kemper has kind of a take on the Kolzig mask for their reverse retro jerseys?
no, I
Yeah,
haven't.
it's pretty sweet looking. I'll see if I can find it for you.
Okay.
So what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
I have gotten to skate in the Excel Center a couple of times. That was a ton of fun. That's probably the most recognizable one. Yeah, I'd probably have to say the Excel Center. I had a couple of open skate type things there. So that was pretty cool.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say Grand Rapids.
Um, I don't remember much about that game. Just, I've got the photo of the glove save and, it was my first game senior year, but it wasn't my first varsity game.
I was going to say they're a Cloquet. That was a cool barn too.
Cloquet's good. Stillwater was always fun to play in.
Yeah, that's an okay barn. That's a newer one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. No, you were playing varsity, I think, at the time, but you may have even graduated. Come to think of it. But we were playing Stillwater, and Chad and I were coaching JV, and we're down by 2. It's the end of the second period. There's like 3 seconds left in the period, and we got a power play face off in their zone. And I look at Chad and I go, why don't we pull the goalie? He's like, what? And I go, 3 seconds. We lose face off. Worst thing we got to do is tie up. He goes, good point. So I forget who took the face off, but we told him, if you lose it, tie it up. It was one of our better centermen. We lose the face off. Not only that, but the Stillwater centerman pulls it back and just shoots it down and scores the goal. Well, at the Stillwater rink, the coaches, you walk out the little tunnel and you got to walk all the way around, but the Stillwater locker rooms and coaches' rooms are on that side. Uh-huh. Well, Phil Housley, he was the varsity coach for Stillwater at the time, but he was coaching the JV team that day for some reason, and he comes running down the hallway to find us before we got around to the other side. He goes, that was the right move. He goes, I wouldn't have had the balls to make it, but that was the right move. He's like, it's not 99 out of 100 times you're not going to get scored on that. He goes, it just sucks. He goes, but that was the right move. Don't feel bad about it. So that kind of felt nice that, a Hockey Hall of Famer told us we did the right thing.
I've always been amazed that NHL teams don't try that more often.
Yeah.
With, 3 or 4 seconds left.
Right.
I've never understood that. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Right. I mean, and it was one of those where I just, in that situation, it's like, and like Housley said, 99 out of 100 times you're not getting scored on there. It was just a complete, utter breakdown.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 ticks of a second left when that puck crossed the line too. Yep. It was like, oh my God. So what is your favorite goalie stick that you've used?
My go-to stick, at least through high school, was a Sherwood Fernandez curve.
Yep.
That was just the one that I went to. Fernandez was one of my goalies. It was my first Wild jersey.
Yeah, got that great mask.
Autographed jersey. His mask was pretty sweet. And him and Rollison, I think, were one of the best tandem goalies at that time.
Yep.
If one was having a rough night, you could count on the other one to bring it back. They were so fun to watch.
Well, they kind of proved the concept of the 1A, 1B, because still in that era, it was ride the starting goalie, where
yep.
How many of those teams can you go back and name both goalies? But that one is like Fernandez, Rollison, and they both went elsewhere and had good careers, but there wasn't that solid 1A, 1B like they had here. And I think Manny Fernandez gets forgotten about with a lot of Wild fans. And how good he was.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he was fun to watch. He was something.
yeah, he made them a better team because some of those teams around him were not very good, but they still were itching at playoff spots every year because of him. You think about like the team they have now. Nothing against Fleury. I love Flower. Gustafson's been fun to watch, but what if Fernandez had a team like that in front of him? What does he do? You know, we saw what Rolison did in Edmonton with the team in front of him.
Yep.
They probably win the cup if he doesn't get hurt.
Yep.
You know.
Absolutely.
So, what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Um, God, I don't have many youth hockey memories.
Well, that includes high school.
Oh, all right. Well, then that's good. Sophomore year JV, last game of the year. We were at Woodbury, and with I don't know, it had to have been a couple of minutes left in the game. Uh, I had the puck covered, and one of the Woodbury kids fell on top of me. And my dad videotaped this, and all you can see is somehow I ended up on top of the kid, and you can just see my left elbow come up and go right back down. And the Woodbury team was just furious, and the ref looked at their coach and our coach and asked, how many games do you have left? And each coach said none, and the ref finally said, then what the hell's the problem?
Yeah. Yep, I remember that now. Yeah,
And that was fun. It was a fun game. I think we ended up winning that game like 3-2 or something like that. And uh, just being able to go back and rewatch that, and that's probably one of my better memories. That was fun.
that's where Minnesota and Illinois are different. Illinois, you could get suspended in the last game of the season, and that suspension would carry over to the next year.
Okay, yeah,
So
sure.
and I remember um, I was a junior because my mom and dad were in England at the time, and our varsity was playing in the state playoffs. And I played JV that year so I could get playing time. And so it's the game was just wild. The rink we were at, there was like this bar that went through the middle of the section as you went up it. And so all of our fans, we were behind the bar, and the home team was in front of it. And there were a couple high school kids that were a little liquored up, having words with some of the dads from our group. And they're like, guys, well, these kids start a fight mid-game. So now the cops are called, and the cops escort these kids out. But it was still a packed house. Now, after the game, both teams are shaking hands, and they stopped the game while this fight's happening so that they could restore order, which is the great part. But so they're shaking hands, and one of the kids from the other team just sucker punches one of our players.
Ugh.
So the fight ensues. Our season's over, and like our goalie, Sergil, he's trying to separate people, and it's like three of them, and these are three kids that normally wouldn't fight. You just see three of them realize all at the same time this was their last game as a senior. Suspensions don't matter anymore. And Sergio,
Yep.
you see him going like this, and it just comes over him. And then the blocker comes around, he gets three kids in one swing, and he just keeps that block, and he's just throwing the blocker. And he was just throwing the blocker because the glove doesn't do anything. He's just like,
Yep.
wham, wham. And now the fans start again, and the cops were still there. We didn't have buses. Everybody drove in their own cars. We had to have a police escort out of the building and out of the town, not just the parking lot, but the town.
Oh,
It
wow.
was something else. And I mean, this team, they're going to the next round of the state playoffs. Half their team was suspended because of the fight. And so they had to bring up JV players, and now they lost the second round because
Yep.
of one stupid player.
Yep.
So what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you?
Oh man. I suppose I've chirped at my fair share of refs since graduating. Usually over something really stupid, like the net comes off a little bit, and you
Yeah.
know how that league is. They'll keep play going
Hmm.
regardless, and once the puck's out, then they'll try to come and fix it. And play just wasn't leaving, and I'm trying to get the refs' attention, and finally, I just said, "You blind mf'er," and I threw the net off.
Oh, Jesus.
And he wasn't very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys were shorthanded following that.
Uh, no, he did just give me a warning. But I looked at him. I said, "The net's been off for over a minute, and play hasn't left." And
Yeah.
and it's not like it was an inch or anything. It was off pretty good.
Yeah.
It was the pipe was behind the goal line.
Yeah. I had a game in the fall. It wasn't going well for us, and they wind up scoring, but the net was off. Not horribly, but it was off. And the ref comes up and he sees it. He goes, "Was this off before the puck went in the net or after?" And I looked at him and I go, "It wasn't off enough to impact the goal." I said, he just kind of chuckles. He goes, "All right, we'll let it stand then." Like he
Yeah,
was ready to call it off for me because it was one of those where, it was getting out of hand. He's like, we can call it off. It's like, it wasn't enough to impact
yeah,
this one. And he's like, "All right, you're being honest. I'll let it go."
yep.
So, what's the worst post game beer you've had?
The worst what?
Post game beer.
Um,
I
let's
feel
see.
weird asking you that question too.
um, we drink Bush Light during the entire Return of the Robin tournament, and it's pretty bad.
Hmm.
Um, I go with it just because it's there, but I
Yeah.
would never go out of my way to get one of those.
No, our guy from Forest Lake, when he comes, the Forest Lake guy is bringing beer because he brings his Bush Light. That is
Yep,
that is
and
the beer that fuels Forest Lake, I think.
and I think I would agree with that because the tournament team that I'm on, it's a bunch of old Forest Lake guys: Timmy Rangich, John Miller, uh, Cody Carlisle, Hardy.
Oh Lord,
It's Woods has played a couple of times, but it's all Bush Light and Boone's Farm.
yeah. It's funny. You drive through Forest Lake, and there's more smoke shops and liquor stores per capita than any part of the state. I swear. And it's like, I
That
forget what
doesn't surprise
I
me.
forget what my wife said. Something like, Forest Lake brought to you by Camo, uh, Marlboro, and Bush Light or something. It was like, yeah, yeah, that sums it up. So when you take your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Say again.
When you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Toe to heel.
Why?
Um, I've always wrapped. I usually wrap up past the heel of my stick and I go up the shaft a little bit. And
Same.
I've just found, at least for me, that it's easier to do that part last than first.
See, I think it's easier to do it first because when I screw up, I don't have as much to take off.
If I screw up, I just keep going.
I'm not surprised. And just not only are you left-handed, but you tape your stick toe to heel, and you are in the severe minority of this one. One day I'm going to go back and actually do the math to figure out the balance here.
And
But I've had two different guests, and they hadn't heard each other's episodes. Call people like you psychopaths.
I'll take it. Maybe it's a left-handed thing.
Yeah, no, because the few others that do that now, Connor Beaupre said he does, but he plays the puck a lot, and he just likes the way the puck comes off because of the
Mm.
friction of the. But I've seen you play the puck, and I know that's not the case. But I will agree with this part. Those two guests that you fall into the psychopath category, being a left-handed toe to heel guy.
Fair
Um,
enough.
So what number do you wear and why? Or do you prefer to wear, I should say. I know the number, but why?
Um, I don't know that I ever really had a reason. I just I'd always worn number one ever since I started playing goalie. Um, I'll always ask for it, but if teams don't have that jersey number, it's no big deal. I'll play another one. But I've just always gravitated towards number one as my goalie number.
Yeah, I'm kind of one of those. I have my number I prefer, but if I just care that I get a jersey,
Yeah.
put whatever number. Don't even put a number. I don't care. Just give me a jersey.
Yep.
That's what I care
And
about.
that's exactly where I am at this point in life. I
Yeah.
just want to play.
Well, I was in charge of ordering jerseys for my team, so we got them from Soda Stick, and just because it was a way to get a bunch of Minnesota Wild fans and Blackhawk colors, I made our colors Blackhawk colors. Um,
Not surprised.
yeah, but it works. Being mostly firemen, our team's name is the Hosers, and all of their apparatus in the different communities are red with the black tops. It's like it makes sense for our colors to be red, white, and black, and they all agreed. And I even showed them, it's like, look, I tried the jersey with the same color combo on all these other patterns, and this one just looked the best. And they're like, we agree, but we're not surprised you went with Blackhawk colors. But yeah, I don't know. I like our jerseys. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's Hosers spelt out in script with a fire hose.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah, they're cool. So last question: what advice do you have for young goalies?
Don't have you as their coach.
I was thinking that.
No, I think start young, stretch every day. I think for me, my flexibility wasn't where I would have wanted it back then, and I think that made things a little tougher for me. I think
It's
I'm one
never
of the
good
few,
when your coach is more flexible than you.
yeah, I think I'm one of the very few goalies that was never actually to do a full splits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that held me back a bit. So I would say stretch a lot.
Yep,
It can only help you.
I agree. I agree. It's a good thing, and that was advice I got from my goalie coach as a kid because his career ended, and he was playing in the minor leagues. His career ended because he didn't stretch before practice and he blew his knee out.
Yeah.
So the importance of stretching sometimes I think it's lost on kids.
Yep.
So I stretch in the locker room. I stretch when I get on the ice, and I even stretch when I get home sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think that was one of the biggest things that held me back. The only time I ever stretched was when I got on the ice.
Yeah,
And I'm still that way. But I would say that's it, especially if you want to have a long career, because as you get older, those muscles get tight quicker, and
yep.
You got to keep them loose.
The fact that I'm 42 and can still do the splits, I think, is mind-boggling. But friends of mine in college would laugh at me because we'd just be sitting there watching a movie, and I'm sitting there doing the butterfly, or if I was sitting on the floor, every now and then I just instinctively would like go into the splits and lean forward, and it just make it just so routine that you don't realize you're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, it's been fun chatting with you. Every now and then it's nice to talk to you. Not too often though.
I get it. I can accept that.
Tell your dad I say hello, and we'll keep in touch at least as long as I'm in the state.
Absolutely.
But have a good one, and we'll stay in touch, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, bye.